Don't filthy my clinic. My screen is here. It's like
Here I am with Debbie Johnson again. Here I am with Huw from Hurley Clinics Hurley Clinics in Taunton. He has a very successful business, and Huw deals with an awful lot of different injuries with his clinic. So we're going to talk about lower back. So lower back is an issue for most people. It can happen through anything, and this is what the difficulty is for things like this, Huw, isn't it? It can be genetics, it can be your lifestyle, it can be your skeletal system, it can be any number of things, really. So it's quite hard to diagnose. But what sort of injuries do you see in the clinic with lower back?
the lower back. Well, people always say, "Oh, I've got a slipped disc, I've got sciatica." They're not. No, it's very sort of ballpark sort of area. Within the sort of, I brought in a little a model. It's a small model of the lower back, the pelvis, and the lumbar spine. Generally, most back problems are lower back. We do get upper back, neck, problems, but general lower back. This is a lumbar vertebra, so
this is lower. This is the last sort of little
last five.
Before it goes into the pelvis, isn't it?
Yeah, that's it. So that's where you got see the curve there. So we have that lumbar curve there going in, and then it goes out and then back into the neck. So this is a lumbar area. So these are always the one that's more prone for sort of injury. You can see there's a little example there of what we call as most people call like a slip disc. It's what we call like a prolapsed disc, herniated disc.
So that's when the disc has just popped out between the vertebrae.
That's it, yeah.
Pop out in various degrees and cause different types of pain, can't
That's it. It's all different degrees, So, you can see these little yellow bits here as well. These are your nerves that come out of your spinal cord and then go down to, various parts of the body, down the leg, for example. You can see them all there.
My pet hates when people come, not pet hates, but when people come in and they say, I've been diagnosed with sciatica, and sciatica to me just means inflammation of the sciatic nerve.
It's irritation, yeah.
There's something else going on. That's not the thing, is it?
Yeah, because these all bunch together to form the sciatic nerve, and then they then spread out and work different parts of the legs, whether innervate or sensory as well. So they're sort of like the electrical system of the legs.
Yeah.
So you got all these, and you can get like a little bit of a bulge and there, and you can push on a nerve, for example, and so you go, oh, why is it? It could be that. It doesn't always mean that that's where you've got a tingly leg or a shooting pain down the leg, but it could be one. It could be a disc bulge.
I guess sometimes it can just be one of the things I think is when people lean forward and reach across. And that's a sort of QL muscle, isn't it? Or different things there that it's that rotation and flexing forward that does it.
You got these little joints on every vertebra going up. I don't know how well you can see that there, but there's a little example. So these little joint there, another one there, and then the same on the other side.
And this is where the muscles attach, isn't it?
They're little, what we call facet joints.
Yep.
All right, and just like any other joint in the body, he doesn't, or she doesn't move because he's got a bolt going through her. So not much movement, but they would basically open and close back and forth. All right, and they can get irritated and inflamed, and that's very localized in that area. So people are like, if they lean back, they get very sharp, or if they sat down too long and they get up, it's quite, their backs can be quite sharp. So that tends to be a little bit sharpness and very isolated to that area. Like I say, if it's a nerve impingement, you tend to get a radiating pain down the leg as well.
Like the sciatic nerve, it runs from the hip all the way down to the heel, doesn't it?
All the way down to the big toe. All the way
down. So you can get pain where you're getting pain in your feet and your legs. It may be something, just nerves in the back.
Sometimes depending on where that pain or that nerve irritation is presenting in the leg, you can then think, okay, it's there, so that means it's a particular nerve as well.
Yeah.
All right, so we can actually feed it back down to that area. So the more obviously a patient tells us, the better we can make a diagnosis as well.
Mm-hmm.
So there's the we've done the disc, what we call little facet joints in there, the lumbar spine, and where the lumbar spine sits in between your hip bones, your ilium here, all right, either side. This is called your sacrum. This is your fused part of your spine.
And that leads down to your tailbone at the bottom, doesn't it?
And you've got your coccyx vertebrae right at the bottom there.
Yeah.
Okay. But basically, your sacrum at the bottom there is wedged in. As you can see, it's wedged in between your hips there. These little joints, they can get a little bit of a problem in there. They can be locked. Sometimes people use the term twisted pelvis. I don't really like that term, but yeah, you know, you can get one tipping one forward, tipping one way, and then the other tipping the other way. So you can get this irritation down in these little joints in here, and then they can sort of cause mechanic. Usually, again, people say, "Oh, I can put my left sock on, but I can't quite get my right sock on." And yeah, okay, probably a restriction in that joint as well. It's all these little telltale signs. So it can be that. Obviously, this little model's been, you know, bolted together again, so I can't show you any movement there. But again, there is just only a little bit of movement, but every vertebra just does about 2 degrees of movement, but it's enough to add it together to get you to bend forward and touch your toes. Or if one little joint isn't working, then it stops you from doing that.
I always think it means that the ones above it and below it, they've got to work harder then, because you've got that dysfunction in that particular area, isn't it? So
that's right. So, you know, you can have one problem, say, in that joint in there, and then you just ignore it like we all do, don't we? And then you start getting, why's my back up in between my shoulders give me a problem? Well, you know, let's have a look. So we look at you there in between your shoulders, but then I'm curious and like, hang on, there's something going down there first of all. So yeah, okay, we'll fix that, but we'll also fix that down there as well.
Yeah. That's the thing about looking at the whole body, because you can relieve a symptom, but I always like that detective work of going back to what actually it could be. What is it in the lifestyle that they do, or how their posture is, or something? Because it started from something. I mean, there are accidents and incidents that start off things, but it generally starts from a repetitive action or something like that, doesn't it?
Yeah. You know, I see quite a few athletes, and you know, they're maybe in the wrong footwear, and you know, I mentioned earlier about how the pelvis could be, you know, tipping one way than the other. So basically, as one drops forward there, because the foot isn't landing properly, then it's going to start putting a little bit more push, anterior movement there, and causing some irritation in that joint. So because of your foot, you've got lower back pain.
Yeah. So what people feel as pain is generally an inflammation, isn't it? It's inflammation of the tissues, or the nerves are irritated and things like that. It's not always lots of people do think it's a slip disc, and it may not always be a slip disc.
All the time, you know, we've all probably got a degree of a disc that's sort of bulging. You know, but like, you know, I remember when you were a kid and you had your inner tubes in your bicycle tyres, when you took them out after fixing the puncture and blow them out, you notice one bit maybe a bit more bulging out than the rest, and that is generally how you know, it's not the shape of your disc really, but it just bulges out. So we do all have, you know, we've not all of us got perfect backs. You might, Debbie, but we've all got some little bulges popping out. So yeah, you do find that, you know, we have that degree, but it's not always because of that. Like I say, it's how your clinician or therapist, what questions they ask to determine, right, what am I looking for? Am I looking for, yeah, I'll probably screen. I'll do some little tests to see if there is a slip disc, to see if there's an irritation there on the nerves. Do other tests just to say, oh no, I think it's something else. And they say, oh, can I have an MRI scan and all this like? Thinking, to be honest with you, you'd be wasting your money. You know, I have a lot of people say, oh, can you refer me for that? And I say, well, I could, but you know, you'll be wasting £300-400.
Yeah.
And it's probably something else. I know people think it's the miracle, and to be honest with you, your MRI scan might not even pick that up, because you're lying down, so there'll be no pressure on the disc, so it might not even show up. So again,
and how can people keep their backs healthy?
Going to people like you, basically.
Yeah, thank you for that. Yeah, it's true. I keep saying to people, it is big movements, because so many people They'll get up from laying prone in all night for a long time. Get up, they sit down, eat their breakfast, they sit down in a car, they sit down at a desk, they sit down, go home, and then they lay back again. And there's been no big movements, like you were saying when we were talking about shoulders. So I do think it is movement is medicine is the latest term, isn't it? In a lot of
it is, yeah. You know, we've got to go. We've got to get out. We've got to go and do our, you know, especially this time, you know, this pandemic. We've got to get out and go and do our walk for the day. It is really important that you do take advantage of that. You know, some of us are fortunate. You know, we got not in a garden. Some people not sort of. You know, they may be in a a small apartment or something like that. You've got to get out. You've got to go and as much as you can and exercise. It's really not just for your body, but for your mind as well.
Yeah.
It's really, really important. You know, a bit of fresh air, just get away from the TV or the computer or whatever you're doing all day long. But even when we're back to normal, we need to get out. You know, there's this thing of 10,000 steps a day. It's not very accurate, but it's a good guide. All right, get out and do some exercise every day and do your 10,000 steps and go to classes.
Go to my class. Go to my class. And that, I mean, there are a couple I deal with a lot of issues, and I know you do. A lot of people who've got different issues. So things like osteoporosis, arthritis, the two different types there. And even with that, I still think there is a place to keep yourself moving. But you perhaps have a more of a clinical aspect on that, because we're talking about osteoporosis is where there's a thinning of the bones, and it means that you're liable to fractures. That shouldn't frighten people.
Shouldn't, no.
Yeah, but you just know what you should move in, really, shouldn't they? But they should still move.
Well, osteoporosis is, you know, there's different levels. But generally, most levels, exercise is recommended to help with osteoporosis. You know, weight bearing or load bearing exercise is really, really important. And the more you can do that, sensible with a good instructor. There you go. To make sure everything's done sensibly. It would really help a lot, and obviously diet as well, and you know, to the degree, medication as well. But you know, it's natural as much as you can, but you know, at some point medication may be needed. Osteopenia, you know, it's a warning sign. So yeah, you know, that's why it's really important to get some exercise and good diet. I don't recommend on diet, but there are some great dietitians, but again, make sure they are qualified
people.
Yeah.
So I know that I'm a member of my sort of governing body, and I know that Huw is. So you know, please do check and make sure people are registered, because there are an awful lot of people who set up, and yeah, you won't know unless you check out things. Everyone looks so presentable, don't they, really?
They do, yeah. There's a lot of, you know, I think you can buy courses off, I don't know, eBay or something like that, and certain things, you know, it's quite scary, really.
Yeah.
But, yeah, for, you know, dietary sort of dietitians, obviously they're regulated. Osteopaths, you've got to be registered with the General Osteopathic Council. So the chiropractors, actually, the General Chiropractic Council. That's it, got that right, yeah. And chartered physiotherapists, they've got to be registered with them. And it's all protected titles as well. So nobody can call themselves an osteopath unless they've done the training and they're registered.
All right, that's lovely. Okay, thank you very much, Huw, for speaking to us today. And if you need more information, I'll be putting Huw's information on my little Facebook group, so on my website, so you'll be able to see a little bit more about Huw there. All right, thank you very much. Thank you.
Pleasure.
All right, thank you.